Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of Paranormal Witnesses. Your host, Rocco Fowler, and co-host, Ralph Williams, Best TV Streaming Services. And we have a wonderful guest today by the name of Gabriel Hackney. And he is here to talk about how he works with people and helps people with the Reiki. And I'm glad to hear him. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Gabriel Hackney. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel Hackney, the owner of the Reiki Master Team. Why the Reiki Master Team? Because when you work with spirit, you never work alone. But a lot of people have paranormal experiences. And for people like me, being a Reiki practitioner, these things that we call paranormal are anything but paranormal. But it's also important that we address the terminology of paranormal so that we're able to separate it in the sense of understanding what it is from our daily life. But when you're a Reiki practitioner and you work with spirits and you help people with their chakra centers, their energies, not only their spirit, but even to some extent, helping people become relieved of ailments in the physical body through that interaction, which it's not a substitute for medicine. That's very important to address, because we need to take care of the body, but just as we need to take care of the body, we also need to take care of the spirit. But when it comes to being a Reiki practitioner and a spiritual person, these things become very normal to us. And when it starts to become more normal, when you become used to understanding what these things are and why they happen, it doesn't have to be so scary. And when these things do pop up from time to time, you're able to address it in a healthy manner and hopefully come to a resolution for these issues. So that's why we need to learn the spiritual aspects for what exactly is happening here. You know, why we encounter hauntings and why we are affected so greatly sometimes the way we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
that's some crazy stuff right there. Yeah.
But here's the thing, Ralph. It's real.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to say my sister practices Reiki herself. She's actually works in a facility. I believe that's what it is. But whatever it is, it's some kind of energy healing. And she says people walk out and they feel so much better, like with me, my personal experience, I met a gentleman. He's actually Dark Hour Paranormal. If anybody is interested in paranormal, listen to Dark Hour Paranormal. That's another really good show. He has really good guests on, really good content. But he started to help me heal. And how he helped me heal was he energetically connected with me, and kind of sort of brought me back, but not fully brought me back to a period of time in my life where things were crazy, on one hand, but the truth. And I'm now able to speak about it. Before I wasn't able to speak about it. I was scared to talk about it. Call me crazy, put me in a nut house, that kind of stuff. When this stuff really can happen. possession can happen. Any of this stuff can happen, but there's ways of getting help. There's many ways of getting help. Like Gabriel said, medication, but there's also other ways as well. Because I believe our minds too are very powerful. And I believe we can manifest things with our minds as well. That's why I always tell people, don't be too negative, don't be too negative, because if you continue to create that negative energy, you're going to manifest something negative. So I've learned to try to stay positive as much as possible.
Totally agree. I totally agree. That's another thing you talk about spiritually, like if you go and think negatively, negative things gonna happen. You think positively, positive things gonna happen. I mean, you got a mustard seed of faith, it's gonna happen. Good things will happen. We just have to believe.
Yep.
I mean, it comes in the spirit. Yeah, it comes in the spirit. Yeah.
And that can actually be said as a type of karma.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to branch out on what karma is and how we can work with it better for a moment, if you could.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so karma is, it can be kind of an envelope term for different states of energy for how we interact and how things interact with us. So there is the karma of our vibration. Hence, like attracts like. Whatever state of energy you're at, that is the type of vibration that you will be bringing into you. And then there is the karma where whatever you do, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Or you could say, in the sense of like an eye for an eye, right? So, you go about in the world and you do great things for others, and great things will happen to you. But you go about in the world and you start stirring pots, then pots are going to be stirred for you as well. So it's very important that we create that peace for ourselves in our lives, because the more peace that we have through that, what they refer to in the East as loving detachment, which isn't a detachment from love, but rather a detachment in the sense where we are in the world, but for us to not constantly being affected by the world. Because when we are so overly open, that is when energetic pollution can come into ourselves, and for us to become very messed up very easily. And that's what I refer to as the first compassion, where we feel how others feel, how we sense how others feel. And so when they're happy, we're happy and everyone's happy. But when they're not feeling so good and they're sad and they're just not doing well, and when they're hurting, so too do we hurt. And we don't enjoy that feeling, and we don't have to be in that energy or that type of karmic state. We can enter a more detached state where we channel that energy, that spirit, and for others to be affected in a positive way and be influenced in a very healthy way, without us being brought down to another person's vibration. So that's very important when it comes to understanding compassion and karma and how the nature of these things work energetically.
Okay, yeah, that's very that's thank you for informing us about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The world needs to know that there's more to it, you know?
Yeah, that's more than just what we see. There's more out there. Yeah.
I talk about the unseen, you know, war, spiritual war.
Spiritual warfare. Yeah.
Right. Spiritual warfare, unseen. We can't see it, but it's going on, you know?
Yeah.
And what was that quote you said the other day, Gabriel? I really liked that. How I saved it. Me and Gabriel talking about something about how you know, me personally am like the type where the internet has, you know, has corrupted a lot of people's minds, creating new things, you know, making up things, you know, the attack on our, our democracy and so on and so forth. But people want to believe all this other stuff. But Gabriel said something the other day about how it's their own mush or something what was that exactly, Gabriel?
Those who bring arguments of hyperbole. Am I saying that right? Hyperbole? Those who bring arguments of hyperbole into arguments of evidence shall sink within the marsh of their own minds.
So
it's very true.
What that mean?
Basically, arguments where it's not so grounded in factual information.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Like, you know, there's like factual information, like, you know, like there a lot goes around there's no facts on it.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff I've been through, I've been talking about it for, you know, a while. And, you know, you always get people that are like, oh, this guy's a liar, or, you know, they really don't know you, though. That's the problem, you know. But then there's a lot of people out there that are putting out stuff that, you know, is endangering certain people. And it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so hyperbole means, and I will quote here for you, it means exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah. So, what are some of the experiences that you have dealt with over time?
Well, the first experience that I've had was when I was about 3 or so years old. I was at the top of the steps, and I heard someone call my name, and it sounded like someone called my name from the bottom of the steps, possibly in the kitchen area. And, you know, I go down the steps because, you know, someone called my name. It sounded sort of like a woman's voice. And similar to that of my mother's, but I wasn't quite certain. I just know that it sounded feminine. So I went down the steps, and I went to the kitchen, and I asked my family members, you know, who called me, and you know, everyone I asked, no one called me. And you know, you may say, oh well, he was just a little kid at the time. His imagination was running away with him. Well, I've had other experiences, not just by myself, but experiences with others. The second main experience, you know, that was just the first one that I had. But the second experience, this, not only I heard it, but my mother heard it too. We were in Kentucky in the Eubank area, and my family owns some property down there, and we went to stay in one of the old houses. So, you know, we have one of these settings that are, scary. And it's like, oh, it's a old house by the railroad tracks. It's the house is a little dilapidated. Ooh, spooky. It's not that it's not that it's because it's old or run down or spooky. It's, that has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that there's a lot of history there. And usually when we go to places that are old, there tends to be history there.
Yeah.
And, we unfortunately have that time in American history where, there were certain people who were enslaved, imprisoned, and made to work. And it was very sad. But that night, I heard what sounded like a man in chains, and not just I heard it, but my mother heard it too. And my mother and my father were both in bed, asleep. And my mother was either just about to go to sleep or, was, getting ready, just laying in bed. But it was so loud. My father, he didn't hear it because when he's sleeping, I mean, he hits the bed and he's out and he's, just, I mean, he's, sawing logs.
Deep sleeper. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not me. That's not me.
Me either.
If somebody could wake me up, like just say my name and I'm up. Yeah.
You're up.
That's right. But he didn't hear anything. But my mother and I, we hear this moan, and it wasn't just one moan. It was like a murmur, like a.
What did you think he was tortured or what?
That's what I'm thinking.
He's humming or
it was. Well, the thing is, it wasn't just the moans. We heard chains, and it scared the bejesus out of us. And we, because when we heard that, we went to ask my great uncle the next day if he was, trying to pull a practical joke on us, and he was very serious, and he said that he didn't. And we asked his son, and his son said that he didn't either. But they're serious, and they're not some people to just pull a practical joke and not tell you the truth about it. They're good people. They're honest. And but later, because I was only about maybe 6 or 7, somewhere around that time, maybe 8 at most, but somewhere around that time. And I was still young, maybe closer to 6. And I didn't know what slaves were, because, when a kid is little and they're not exposed to that type of history, I mean, how can a child imagine, that there was this time in our history,
right,
where these things happen? And the only thing that I could think of, to resemble what I heard was in that I think it's the Christmas Carol movie, but it's the animated version, the cartoon version, the one that the kids watch, and then you hear the ghosts of Christmas past and the 2 old geezers with rattling their chains, and it's like, but it sounded a lot scarier than that. And it's, looking back on it now, that's not something that I should have been afraid of. That's someone, who was there in that past, that was crying out to us. Because later I would come to find out, as years rolled on, moved on, passed by, I would come to learn from my father that there were slaves that were buried by the tracks, because during the time when America was growing in terms of industry and making the railroads slaves would sometimes, that was big business. And unfortunately, some people weren't treated fairly at all. And, that truly is a crime, and perhaps even in other ways pertaining to the history of the property. I don't know. I know that my family, they came from more than Virginia's. So they weren't there, not to my knowledge, during those times. But the fact is, there are markers near the railroad tracks where the slaves were buried around the property.
Wow.
And I don't think that, we should ever be okay with what happened in the past to those people. I don't think that we should ever, come to a point in our history where we're just okay about it, because, something like that should never be okay, and it should never happen again. Never. But what I do think that we can do to help hopefully heal our nation and our people and truly the world is by coming to hear these people's stories, what happened to them, to acknowledge that they were here, that they existed, and to hear what happened to them, and to share with others their experiences. I think that bringing that to light and to honor those people by sharing with others what they went through and just how terrible it was during those times, that hopefully this can act as a bridge to bring some peace to those souls, and for us to not be so greatly haunted by our histories.
Do you believe? Hold on, Ralph?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you believe that you might have a sixth sense, Gabriel?
Well, what is a sixth sense?
Like you see dead people. Do you have you seen dead people?
Have you heard it, or have you seen them too?
Well,
I've seen spirit people. Yeah, I've seen some things myself, but nothing really. I've kind of let it go, but also the history. Like Gabriel said, you can't ever let the history go. But I don't believe in going into certain places where historic things happened and taking EVPs and invoking, evil. I just don't believe that. Or not evil, but just, stirring up, like you said, stirring the pot. Because you walk into a place where a bunch of people were slaves and they were buried, and you start asking questions and you start, trying to communicate. Sometimes they don't want to communicate. Sometimes they're not nice. And people will continue to do it because they're looking for answers, when it's really right to just let these people rest in peace.
But are some of them, why do we have these unrest around here? Like, we're talking about history. So we are looking at history, but you're saying that there are spirits out there, so they also have history too. We just can't see them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, back to Montauk type stuff. Okay. Okay. All these boys have died in this program, right? Or a lot of them had died on that property. So whenever I go on that property, I get this eerie feeling. I get this depressed feeling. I get very emotional. And I always feel like there's he called himself Jimmy. He reached out to me through an actual electronic EVP, electric voice phenomenon. And it was through like FM, AM, and he clearly said, Rocco, I need your help. and I freaked.
That's scary. So he said your name.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then my other friend got possessed that day and started talking about this is going to turn into a enslavement camp. And like, he was normal in the beginning, like we literally had to walk him to the car. It was that scary. Like, so I don't know. I don't really like to go up there anymore. I learned my lesson with that because I had Jimmy follow me home. And he was a young Montauk boy from the 80s, from what he said, conveyed to me through dreams. And, and he stuck around for a while until I, said, it's time, you got to go, and I cleansed my home. But
how
a lot
long
of
did
bad
this
stuff
last?
happened. Oh, this lasted, I want to say, about a good year.
He was with you for a year?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't let go. You understand what I'm saying? For some reason, I tried to let go, but I wouldn't let go. But yes, it is definitely a bullet point with history to not forget what has happened to people. And a lot of times you go to these places and you hear things, you see things, but it doesn't mean just go over and try to conversate with it. And I've noticed a lot of people do that, and then later on their lives seem to fall apart. It's paranormal investigating is one thing. I don't believe you have to bring cameras and all this stuff and, to communicate. Because if God gave you the gift to communicate, you're going to communicate.
But that's more for just entertainment value. They want to go, there's many people that want to see what's going on.
So but it's not safe. It's not safe.
I want there's a fictional movie, and obviously there's some realness to it. Paranormal Activity. That movie.
Yes.
And it's every movie you mess with the demon and they come after you. Gabriel, is that true?
That can be absolutely true. I mean, it's like, why would you poke a hornet's nest, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Or walk into a pile of red ants knowing it's there.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I want to mention what I said earlier. When I said, what is a sixth sense? I was being more rhetorical, and I wanted to go into the conversation of what exactly a sixth sense is.
Sounds good.
So we have to first understand is that when it comes to our so-called sixth senses, well, how do people usually describe those senses being? Some people may be clairvoyant, as in clear seeing. Some may be claircognizant, as in clear knowing. Some may be clairaudient, as in clear hearing. Some may be clairsentient, as in clear feeling, where they literally feel it upon their body. They may feel it tingling. They may feel warmth or coldness. They may feel energy being described for how we understand it as sharp and jagged, or it may feel soft and smooth. It may feel heavy, or it may feel light. So clairsentience can be felt in all sorts of different ways. And when it comes to me specifically, being a Reiki practitioner, I will show you real quick just my workstation here. So you see these crystals and stones and things like that. And do I need them? No, but can they help? Because there are certain types of elements that can interact with energy in a certain way? Yes, absolutely. So I will use those elements, those stones and crystals, as placeholders for the positioning of the chakras in the body. And then for the 7 main chakras, for that teaching, I can rotate the chakras for those placeholders to the body. So like where the root chakra is, I'll envision that's where the feet are, and where the heart chakra is, that would be where the hip joints are and the pelvis. And then for where the crown chakra is, the 7th chakra, well, that will still be where the head is, but that would be more for the whole area of the head. And the chakras that are, for the other placeholders that are between them, for the other associated parts of the body, for where the positioning is. And that's how I will rotate it between the body and between that of the chakra centers. Because sometimes when I go to work with a person, with their chakras, sometimes they'll also need help in a specific area of the body. And so I'll rotate it to that, and I will work with the energy of their physical body and help to relieve for that person their ailments, and they can actually start to feel better. And again, this is not a replacement for medicine or painkillers, but it can help a person to be relieved of certain stressors that have been plaguing them, sometimes possibly for years. And in that process, for those people to sometimes, continue to feel better, and sometimes those people may need a few more treatments, and then they start to feel better after. But there's always, certain situations where there are some people going through chronic illnesses, chronic issues, sometimes environmental issues, certain habits, behavioral patterns that, for whatever reason, they're not breaking. And sometimes that relates to areas of karma, karmic issues pertaining to that. But most of the time people see really great results. But when it comes to sensing energy and working with people clairsentiently, that's how I work with people. And it's also important to learn how those energies are expressed, because a lot of times a person will be suffering from an issue regarding a certain part to the psyche, and for the chakras to be involved with the vibration of what we refer to as the mind. And when a person is encountering a certain issue, let's say an emotional issue, that may be very sacral chakra oriented, because of how that sacral chakra interacts with the organs of the body, the waterways of our body, certain internal organs of the body pertaining to the gonads and things like that. So it's a very emotional chakra, that pertaining to the womb for women. So there's a lot of emotion for the sacral chakra. And then for the solar plexus chakra, it pertains to more the mental aspects of the intellect. And when we think about the organs in that area, we think about the stomach, the liver, and underneath the diaphragm for, that muscle that we use to work with the lungs. But, that's sort of like midway between the solar plexus and the heart chakra, but it's like that's where that area is. And when you think about food and hunger, you're thinking about where you're going to get your next meal. So that solar plexus chakra, quite possibly because of how it interacts with those organs, became a chakra that is very associated with the mental part of our psyche, for the thinking, for the intellect. So we see these chakras have developed in different ways according to the areas of the body, and learning how to work with that. And when we sense sometimes heaviness or jaggedness, and learning how to decompress that energy from that area, to soften it, to lighten it, and to help the energy flow through, that can be considered a type of transmutation. And learning how to work with the energies of the body can help us not only feel better, but it can help us be in such a great state that people who sometimes are prone to things like possession. It's like, does an evil spirit want to be in a body that's just so, high and happy? It's like, no, they're going to go off to another place where they're comfortable at, because that's the karma of vibration. So working with people to help heal their vibration in that sense, and working with the environments in that sense, can bring a lot of healing to people, not only for their bodies and their minds, but the environments that we live in, and for there to be a harmony that can be brought in those ways. So it's important to look at it in that sense.
So what keeps
Wow.
we have heaven and hell. What keeps somebody on earth?
What keeps anybody on earth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times people may have unresolved issues. Sometimes people pass away, and some people just, either don't quite know that they're dead or that they, want to stay around for whatever reason, because usually when we pass away, it becomes very easy and we go into spirit. Sometimes for the people who are more aware, for when they pass on, and people will come and help them to come through to the other side, to what you may refer to as heaven. And that heaven, I mean, that's a really big envelope term, because it's like, it's like Earth. We have all these countries, all these lands, these nationalities and languages, and as above, so below. There's so many places that you can go, but generally speaking, we have loved ones on the other side who are seeking to help us and to heal us, and when it's our time to move on, generally speaking, yes, we should embrace that moving on, so that way we can go to the next chapter, the next journey. Because once people are over there on that side of the veil, it's not impossible not to come back. It's not impossible not to communicate with us on that side of life. So the main thing that I find that people become stuck is when we become so attached to the physical environment, the elements of it, the vibrations of it. And they even describe that in scriptures, how a person who is so holding to the earth can't enter heaven in that sense, if they are so holding on to the physical space, the physical environment, all these things. It's like, how can you enter when you are so stuck in your physical vibration to the elements? So it's important for people to learn how to let things go and to help heal those environments. And that's why I express the importance of it, so that way we can place those souls at ease.
So he's basically saying that mentally, what we're going through is also spiritually same way, right? Not just health-wise, but also spiritual too. Are you saying that?
Absolutely, because it's like how the people in Judaism and Christianity, it's like how they refer to the books of life. Well, the books of life may be referred to as other things, such as the Akashic records. And now we have in particle physics. Is that the correct terminology? The physics of the particles of quantum physics. We see theories pertaining to consciousness continuing to exist outside the body, and theories like string theory, and how the vibrational quality of the elements, of the fundamental energies, can connect in those ways. So everything that we are experiencing right now in the physical life that is also a part of our spiritual life. It's simply another modality of experience. And then when the physical vessel of our being passes on, then we continue to have another experience. And yet we try to separate it, like this is the physical life, and yet here's the spiritual life. And it's like it's all the same. We're just viewing it from different lenses.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely, most definitely.
So saying like my grandmother, she was about 3 or 4 years ago. My grandmother was dying from kidney failure, and it just went so badly. Just seeing her, and she was stuck in the bed, and it was so horrible just seeing her stuck there. And I was just praying that, not praying, but I'm like, I feel more for her being sick, and I'm like, if she's gonna have to go, just let her go in peace. Was I thinking correctly?
Absolutely. When when a person is struggling physically, and life is just becoming so miserable for them to live, where every single day it's like, yes, we can work to help make the body feel better, and even to an extent to help prolong it. But there is also the sense of, is that prolonging doing more good or not, because of the quality of life the person is experiencing? So that's very important, because we can bring in people of spirit and help to ease their suffering in that sense. Not saying that we shouldn't nix medicine and painkillers. We should listen to our doctors, absolutely. But there's absolutely something there when it comes to the spirit and spiritual practitioners. The people who help in those ways. But letting those people move on and accepting their passing, their peace, because they don't want us to suffer here. They don't want us to mourn so greatly their passing, in the sense that they see us suffering. Because when they see us suffer, how do you think they feel about it? They don't want to see us suffering. They want us to be happy and live life. We have a body. We're able to still live and continue on with our experiences in this plane of life. So it's very important that we acknowledge that they are able to move on and be healthy in new ways and have new experiences that we can only imagine in this physical state, through the limitations of the physical conduit. So it's a very good thing. It's a very happy time when a person passes for them, because it's a new birth. It's an entrance into a whole new life, and they get to meet so many people that they have loved, that have passed on before them. So it's like how you welcome a new child into the world, and then when your time comes, again, a new child enters the world, but it's the world of spirit. So looking at it from that sense I find it very important for us to come to peace with so much that has happened to us, especially in these past few years.
So what we're saying is that it says it's temporary, right? We are temporary, right? So, like what it said in the Bible, we should just prepare to get ready for death, right?
Absolutely. Be prepared as if you will be taken tomorrow. But it's be prepared energetically, or be prepared as if you're ready to go now, even. That's the more correct way of looking at it, because it's not so much in the sense of being prepared as in the things that we have around us. I mean, because it's like, are you able to bring any of that with you?
Yeah. So when you say you're by faith, not by sight, is that basically what we're saying?
Well, it depends on a person's definition of faith. Some people may define faith by feeling, where they sense the energy and that they know through their faith, through what they sense, through that connection in it. Then there is more the concept of blind faith, where a person doesn't know, but it's something that they hold on to. And I ascribed more so to the sense of learning how to work with the sensing type of faith, where we practice our walk, where we're kind to others, and that we do good in the world, not because of some book telling us to, but because it's the right thing to do, and to learn how to sense with our hearts in those ways. And it's like, yeah, certain religions and cultures may refer to the heart of the person being evil, but it's not so that it's evil in that sense. It's like, what is evil? When a person feels pain and sorrow and they're not so aligned, misalignment more than anything is what causes issues to arise. And it is when that individual is not so complete as a person, that is when issues can arise. So when it comes to faith, to me, it's more about that that centering, to become aligned in those ways. To me, that's what true faith is, because it's not about those who can see with their eyes, but those who are blind yet see. And I truly believe that what they're referring to, for the deepest meaning of it, is that we see not with our eyes, but with our spirit.
Okay, cool. A few years ago, the time of when the Olympics was in 2016, nearby, about 5 miles away from me, there was a massacre that happened at a house. And I'm like, I don't think I ever want to go in there. I don't think I ever want to go in there, because there was evil that happened there. Would that keep some of the spirits there with the history from what happened that day? Would that experience stay there spiritually?
Things like that can happen. They do happen. And when those things do happen, how do we come to resolve those issues? Well, first off, if those people suffered a tragedy in those ways, then we should treat each of those people as a case in itself, to help place those people at rest, at peace. But then there's the aspect of the environment, just how we have these digital devices where we store information on, flash drives, hard drives. The elements themselves can even act as a medium to hold an energy, to hold a vibration. And the particle physicists, or the what's that physicist again? The subatomic physics. I'm trying to think of the name here and I can't, but the scientists, the physicists, may say, well, the energy from atom to atom may move, and it, can't take a hold like what you're saying here because we don't quite see it in that area of science. Well, when we think about the ego entropy, if you will, the construction of energy, how things continue to build upon each other, and the nature of the Akasha, the Akashic records. It's like, what are these records? These records of life. And it's like they are remnants. They are memory fragments, a collection of them to create the psyche of the soul, of the spirit, of the mind, of that consciousness which continues to exist within that great energetic supercomputer of the cosmos. And that can attach us back to the physical world, to the physical elements, to those times in which those things took place. And those things can continue to permeate within those environments. So when it comes to going into those environments, it's important that we learn how to work with those environments to raise the vibration and truly transmute what happened there. But at the same time, let's say a person is weary of a certain place, and then they go to bring that worrisome energy into that environment. Well, you know how when a couple fights and there's a lover's quarrel, and you go to enter the room, and they're just fighting a moment ago, but then they put on the happy face, and you enter the room and you're like, what happened here? And you can sense it. And as a society, sometimes things like this happen where we sense the environment because the person who came before us may have had not so good of a vibration about them. And then that environment becomes affected by their energy, but so too can an environment affect our energy. So it's very important for us as a society to bring peace and to lift that vibration for healing to transpire, so that way we can actually let these things go and bring ourselves and our cities and the places that we go to work and worship and just go about our day for our daily travels, so this way we can actually have peace after chaos.
Oh, okay. All right. So communication with the other world. Haven't when I was young, sometime when you're walking by, and I lived in Phoenix at that time, and I would feel like something cold, like just walk through me. Like, could that be spirit? Or sometimes like when you hear like maybe somebody call your name, but they're not there, but like, did somebody call my name? Or could that be communication?
Absolutely, because what you may be sensing is a change in the energetic environment. And as a Reiki practitioner, when I go to help with a person's energy, the energy that I channel from spirit is then sent to the person's chakras, and I will feel a warmth flow from my hand, and that is how I sense it for the areas that I need to work with to help that person. So you sensing a cold spot is sensing a change in the energy, and that can then have a physical effect upon us, at least through the physical concept of sensing it. And so we may feel it as hot or cold, or a tingling, or a heaviness, or a lightness, But going into different environments and seeing how those environments feel energetically for how it affects us, that is how we learn how to work with our clairsentience. But yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let me see. I forgot the other question was, but I can go to the next one. Yeah. Is there a way you can at least describe what you do? Not describe, but when you do those type, not experience. You know what I'm saying? When you go up and work with work with the people, what are you actually doing? Can you give me a description? What are you actually doing? What steps are you doing?
Okay. Well, I will actually show you the the workspace that I have here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's take a look. So keep in mind, I use these as placeholders. So I will envision the root chakra right here, and certain crystals, certain elements do work well with the body, especially for transmuting toxic energies. So like this stone, it's called golden healer quartz. That's just what they call it. A citrine is a very good stone. It's a very good crystal to work with. From my understanding, for the nature of quartz, it has a lot of oxygen and silicon in it. And okay, so oxygen, silicon, and I believe there are hydrogen elements to it as well. So the construction of the quartz crystal very much this is just my theory, may connect to elements in the body. So it's a very good flowing element to work with because of how it may affect us in those ways with more the fluid components of the body. But basically, I have placeholders, and then I go to sense how that chakra area feels. And if that area, if I sense a lot of heat flowing into that area, then it means that it is an area that is very much in need of being relieved of whatever that person is going through. And as I continue to work with each area, I will know when that person's energy becomes more comfortable or not, because there won't be so much that I need to work with. But I will also sense heavy spots and light spots. So a part that feels heavy, it just feels a little dense. And when that area feels dense, it means that the person is holding on to something in that area, whether it is pertaining to the physical elements of the body, whether it's pertaining to the psyche, because of how the energy center not only interacts with the psyche, but also how it interacts with the body. So working with that can help in both aspects. So I just simply continue to help the person become aligned and in a good state of flow for their energy. And the more that I work with that person, the better that they feel, usually speaking. And when I sense those issues, I also rely on my claircognizance to better understand what they're going through. So sometimes when there's a issue in the body, I will actually feel it a little bit within my body for certain areas that they may be having issues with. And when I sense those issues, it's like, okay, these people need help in this regard. And I'll ask them, do you have issues in, whatever particular area that I'm sensing? And they're like, yeah. And so then I go to work with that person. And when I go to envision it either in the chakra concept or for the body, depending on how I'm working with those placeholders, I will sense that energy there and I will feel the heat flow to that area. and I will also work to help decompress that stiff energy there. And as I work to decompress it, it acts as a way for the energy, not only within the energy centers of the chakras, but also quite possibly for how the energy within the body functions. So that way the body can start to feel better, and people then start to feel better as a result. And, that's great. And, I can't express enough how important it is to take care of the body in the sense of proper food, proper nutrition, but it's also important to work with the energetic aspects of it too.
Okay. I had a question. Right, that's a question. If when you release the spirits, can you make them go maybe back to maybe escape the world and go to heaven or wherever they're trying to get to? Or are you just relieving them from the pain that they're going through and they feel more better, or can you do both of them?
Primarily speaking, I help people with their chakras in their bodies, but I've helped people in those ways as well.
Okay.
And it should be addressed. One of my friends who helps people to cross over, you can help people cross over in a lot of ways, but for people who may need additional assistance, you can bring in good angels. Like, for example, Azrael and Azarael. That is basically a twin angel, where one is more the masculine and the other is more of the feminine nature of that energy. And that's a really good angel, light being, you could say, to work with, because let's say the person has more of a masculine outer nature to the energy. Then that angel can help to partner with that person to get on their level, to connect with them in those ways. And then, the same for the more feminine nature, more for the inner nature of the energy. So working with angels and what people may refer to as God or creator, and bringing in those spirits to help people transition can be very helpful. And how a person, a Reiki practitioner or simply a practitioner spirit, they would call in for the assistance of those people to make that bridge and to make that doorway for them to enter. And then, of course, you close that doorway after they move through it. But yeah, just, working with them in those ways can be very helpful to help people move on, because, as I said, sometimes there are some people who may not quite be aware that they've passed on. So sometimes that's very good for people to help those people who may feel stuck here or are quite literally stranded here, which, it's not a pleasant thought, because we don't want to, think about, people being stuck here. But one of the most profound experiences that I've had in my life was when I was at a convention expo for psychics and mediums and Reiki practitioners and other types of intuitive people, and just, mind, body, and wellness, type expo. And there's this one practitioner, he was a Reiki practitioner, and I wanted to talk with him. And I was waiting in line, and he was working on someone, and I sensed this person behind me, and I went to turn around, and nobody was there. At least nobody that I could see. And I was a little unsettled by it. And then I felt this warmth grab my arm, and it wasn't, like, it wasn't painful or anything. It was just like a person, grabbing my arm, saying, like, hey, like I saw that you saw me, and that person was trying to get my attention. And as it turns out, that the Reiki practitioner that I wanted to speak with was a person who helped a lot of people cross over, who are sometimes stuck here. So that person got my attention, after I sensed them, and I alerted the Reiki practitioner to what I was sensing, and when he opened that portal for that person to cross over, I actually felt it, and it felt kind of like a cold spritz, like I was being spritzed with water, and that was just such a cool experience for me to have, because before he did that, he asked the person if they knew that they were deceased, that they were in spirit, and if they were stuck. And when he asked that person those things, I could actually feel clairsentiently the wealth of emotion that soul was experiencing. It was just such a state of overwhelm. And when I felt that it was like a heavy grief or burden finally being acknowledged, saying, yes. And then he went to ask that person if they wanted to move on, to enter spirit. And they acknowledged him, and he went to open that portal for him. And that person, that soul, was finally able to cross over and find peace. And just seeing that, that was the coolest experience that I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I want to learn how to be able to do these things too.
Okay. So is there such thing as curse? And if there is, how dangerous could it get?
Oh yeah, there's curses. It's like it's like asking if curses exist, and it's like, do hornets exist? It's like, yes, curses can exist. And it's like it's not that they not only can exist, they do exist. And it's like, how do you get rid of a curse? Well, that's why I talk with people about loving detachment, because it's like whenever there is a weakness within us, and our energy, our chakras, one of our chakra centers, areas of psyche, areas of spirit, is so open, where we become vulnerable to that attachment, to that exchange. Whenever there is an area of weakness within ourselves, it's like that's where a curse can essentially take hold. And like, how do you remove that? Correct your karma. When a person is very good, and very loving person, and they practice that loving detachment, and they just continue to be in their being, it's like, how can these dirty things affect you so greatly? And there are some people who may say, well, what about these children in hospitals who are dying of cancers and things like that? And it's like, how can that not be considered a curse for the child and for the family? And the things like that are so heartbreaking. And again, that's why I address, there is the body, and then there is the spirit, but they work together. So it's important to be in good karma, but it's also important to practice being in good body, to be in good health, because sometimes things do affect us and our families and our loved ones and the people that we hold dear in our life. And it's like, why do these things happen? It's like, well, let's let's take a look at what the underlying causes are. Is there a genetic abnormality? Are there pesticides in the food? What is happening? So it's like the things that we do to ourselves, that can affect us in a certain way, but then the things that we do to others, either intentionally or not, can have consequences as well. And sometimes those curses of society, if you will, are simply because of ignorance and not doing things as quite as well as what we should be doing. So when it comes to the actual concept of the spiritual curse, it's like, how do you lift that? Well, practice being a good person, practice being in good karma, be loving, be compassionate, but, be healthy in your compassion as well. And, just be present. So, learn how to listen spiritually. If something's plaguing you and affecting you, learn what that is. Unfortunately, there are many people who don't have that upbringing of spirituality or haven't gone down that path to understand both themselves and the nature of spirits. And so they may not quite understand what is happening because they've never had that very core education that is so important to each of us. So, it's like, how do you lift a curse, right? I explained it.
Yeah. So there are ways like somebody that caused a curse to a family, maybe some from decades ago, and caused a curse over the family. Could that happen?
Well, there are things like haunted possessions, where a person places a energy upon a certain object, and for that to be kind of like a radio beacon. It's like, can those things be removed? Well, certainly they can be removed. You just like how you change the vibration of your being, so too you can change the vibration of objects. And it's like a key can't open a door that it doesn't belong to. And if there's something in that is affecting those people, it's like, is it an area of weakness? Is it something pertaining to a life karma? Quite possibly. So there's all sorts of things that it could be attached to.
Okay. So like, remember the movie, I don't remember at that time, but there was a movie called The Exorcist. Remember, heard that movie, Exorcist? And a few people who acted that movie died either while working there or died afterwards. Could that be a curse, or is it just something just has happened? It's just how life is, right?
Well, people die every day, don't they?
Yeah. So yeah.
So it's like, the more that we look towards the things that are not so pretty in the world, and for our mindset to go towards that vibration, naturally we are going to open something up, vibrationally speaking, and then become in tune with that vibration. And it's like, why would you continue to meditate upon that? So, when people make these scary movies and things like that, it should be done with a light heart. This is supposed to be for entertainment, but to dwell on those things and to constantly meditate on them. Is it scary enough? And it's like, oh, spirit, I'll show you scary. And it's so we want to, generally speaking, keep things positive, but at the same time, a lot can be told through storytelling, and great education can be brought from that. But at the same time, we don't want to dwell on anything, stressful, because a lot can be rot from that. So, you know, enjoy the experience, enjoy the story, learn from it. Just don't dwell on those negative things.
Okay. Age. Spirits going through, you know, torture, going through that. Could be any age, could be a child going through that. Is it all ages, or, you know, just depending on how mature, what's that? Yeah.
You mean, can people of any age experience these things?
Could people of any age be a spirit?
Yeah, absolutely. There are people who are little toddlers, and to the person who's watched too many ghost stories, it's like, oh, spooky, little dead children. It's like, dead, really? It's like, you know, it's like once the physical vessel passes away, it's like, you know, consciousness continues to exist. And you know, we've already spoken about this, but it's, you know, it's, people truly can be of any age, really. And it's not just people, but, you know, animals too. So there's all sorts of spirits around us right now. It's just, are we aware of those things? And then people go to meditate, and, you know, they practice their spirituality, and naturally, as they become greater sensors through the alignment of their energies, they start to sense more. And some people may become afraid and turn away from that. And they may say, oh, I did these things and I saw things and it's evil. It's like, no, you're just opening your eyes. Your eyes were closed for so long. You're just opening your eyes now. And when you start to open your eyes, your senses, it's like, yes, you will see things, you will hear things, all sorts of things. And, you know, there's all sorts of people there, people of all different, you know, not just nationalities and ages, but you may encounter some people who are not even of the human concept that you may think of. There are people from all across the world, the universe, that we may encounter. And some of the guides that we may encounter may not be so much in the human form that we're used to. There are some people who may be more fish-like or, you know, amphibian or lizard-like or ant-like. I mean, the consciousness of what we think of as consciousness can take so many different shapes and forms. And when we start to go into the concept of greater collectives of consciousness, you know, it's like what the Dalai Lama said, there's not 8 billion human beings on this earth. There is one human being. So coming into that concept of understanding as well, it's like we will see different spirits in their individualized forms, but then we may encounter other types of energies, other types of spirits in even greater modalities of spirits as we raise our vibrations and connect in those ways, such as what the Buddha described as how when a person becomes a Buddha, they become the Buddha because they become one in being with the whole. You know, just like how we have our brains, and it's like, is there one neuron or is there a brain? And it's like, there are many neurons, but it's one brain. And it's like, there's many cells, but it's one body. So we may see things in the small part, the small view in that sense, but it depends on how you're looking at it, what lens you're looking at it from, what state of energy, state of vibration you're looking at it from. So there's really many different ways of going about that question, really.
Okay. What actually got you into wanting to do this? There are so many jobs out there, so many paranormal jobs. Like, what made you want to do this?
Sort of survival.
Hmm.
I would shake a person's hand sometimes and people will be like, oh, he's fibbing, but it's seriously, I would sometimes shake a person's hand and become injured. I would, go to certain places and feel the energies, and it's like I just wanted to gain peace in my life. I wanted to gain peace in my spirit. And a lot of people who are suffering from energetic issues may experience emotional traumas because they may enter an environment and pick up on the emotional state of that energy and then be affected by it. And I just wanted to find peace and happiness in my life. And if I can help others find peace and happiness in their life through that balance, then hey, that would be something that would be wonderful for me to work towards, because I've sensed so greatly throughout the years, and it's like, why not learn how to hone this instead of not practicing honing it? Because if I didn't practice honing it, then I just would have been bombarded. I would have continued to been bombarded by all sorts of issues energetically, because I've naturally been very sensitive throughout my whole life, and I was very emotional as when I was younger. And I realize now that part of those emotional issues that I was experiencing was sometimes the result of sensing the energies of others and then being affected by them, emotionally speaking. So learning how to practice Reiki and balance my energy, the chakras, to remove that heaviness from my chakras, from my being, and learning how to be a better sensor in healthy ways truly led to a happier life for myself. And not only feeling better emotionally, but also feeling better physically. When I was younger, I would feel a pain in my throat, and when I grew older and I learned how to work with the chakras, I went to work with that energy and I went to remove the heaviness that was there, and then I began to feel better. I was like, wow. And then I realized that, some of these issues that I was going through was in large part energetic issues that I never truly mastered in my younger years. So this is very much survival for myself and learning how to be in better health, especially since I come from a history of heart attacks and heart disease and Alzheimer's and things like that. And I just want to make sure that I'm not only in balance energetically, but also in balance physically, because what affects one can absolutely affect the other. So it's important to find balance in those sense.
What type of education there you need to get to this?
Well, we never stop learning, learning. But how you can go to an online course if you like for learning Reiki. You can buy books on it, but it is good for a person to go to a Reiki practitioner and have an attunement, because it's like we have this wonderful computer, this beautiful, wonderful computer, yet we don't quite know how to work it. Let's say we have a phone and we can download apps onto the phone, but we don't know how to work it. And it's like you can't use it if you don't know how to work it. So going to read books to learn how to work with the chakras, that could be wonderful. Any chakra book that you buy which talks about the chakras, that will be helpful. it's the book that you read about it is helpful, because chakras are, generally speaking, fairly general in their understanding from teaching to teaching, because the root chakra is the root chakra for its location and how it pertains to survival and life and death, and how we're grounded in life and our upbringing, and that's the general analogy for the root chakra wherever you go. And the same with the sacral chakra being very more of a emotional chakra and how it pertains to those organs. And then the same with the solar plexus chakra being that of a more mental nature, and that which pertains to the magnetic force, pertaining to control, the psyche of that, to be, not controlling so greatly, but, to be balanced in it. So, I mean, you can buy a book and learn about the chakras and learn how to work with the nature of that energy, and simply place your hands upon those areas to help transmute those energies. And, just placing your hands on those areas, you will feel the activation of it. But you can take an online course, you can go to a school. Generally speaking, any Reiki teacher, any Reiki master who has undergone a proper education will teach you properly, just as long as you go to one who actually knows what they're talking about. And, it's important to address that there's different levels of Reiki. The first level, it pertains more to the hands-on healing, as they call it. I didn't want to stay in that modality because I didn't enjoy, being in the actual physical space of that person, because the other person's energy would flow too greatly onto myself, and for me to be affected by it. So I work remotely. I'm very happy about that, and I'm able to work even better now because of it. So then there's the second level of Reiki, where we learn how to work with people remotely. And just like how we use our words to communicate, we use certain symbols to communicate as well. And it's like some people may refer to that as magic. It's like, okay, then I guess all of language is magic too. So it's like, we use certain symbols because of the symbology for what that symbol means, for how we connect in those ways. Because it's not just us working here in the physical realm. There are so many Reiki practitioners in spirit working in the spiritual realm, and you may see these guides, these Reiki practitioners who have already ascended into spirit, and it's like everyone that you see, it's like there are 100 more behind each one of them, because they're, because it's like, what is the nature of the one? It's like there's so many. So when it comes to the third level of Reiki, that is more about, that's the advanced Reiki, is just learning how to work with more advanced symbols. And you'll actually see this on my certificates. Can I show you them?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so there's the Reiki level 1. See, I am trained in the Usui, Shiki, Ryoho, and Tibetan. And I'm technically a 7th generation Reiki practitioner. But when you see level 3, you see here just, it's more advanced. But when it comes to being a Reiki master, that is when you have advanced enough in your training that you're able to teach other people as well. Because of how much you have learned. Of course, there is the whole area of teaching that, you need to learn how to teach these things correctly as well, to communicate to others, and how to give a proper attunement. because there is a certain methodology to it because of how the physical body works for channeling chi. And it's like, at the same time, do these things have to be done so physically to a certain extent? And it's like, let me express it like this. When Dr. Usui, who went to the monasteries and searched through the ancient scripts and found these symbols and found these teachings, and then he went to go onto the mountainside, the hill, where he stayed 3 weeks and casted a stone over the side of the hill each day, occasionally going to drink some water. During those 3 weeks, who attuned him? Spirit. The people in spirit, they attuned him. So do you need a Reiki practitioner to attune you? I highly recommend it. Absolutely, I recommend it. But at the same time, it's like, how do these things start? It all starts with you and your connection, your meditation upon spirit, that oneness. So much can be brought unto us in terms of attunement in those ways. But I do highly recommend that if a person is interested in learning how to become a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master, Reiki teacher, that they go to someone who is certified like myself, or someone that is close to them or that they're comfortable with, and that they learn the teachings, and for them to learn how to do these things properly.
It's now, you know, there are people with different talents and stuff sometimes, and I got multiple talents. I want to talk about that. But is there people that practice Reiki that have talents before they get into it and they just learn, or when you do it, there you just have to start from ground zero? What's that?
Well, there are a lot of people who go into Reiki because, like myself, they already have certain senses that they're used to. And like myself, they want to learn how to hone those senses, not only to help themselves better, but to help others better. So absolutely.
Are every case you go through, are they always different experiences?
Most of the time, yes. Every single case is unique. But at the same time, just because every single case is unique, are there certain similarities that we find? Well, ask any psychologist, and they may describe how certain people may go through certain issues because of, just being human. Like, for example, relationship issues. A lot of people may suffer from issues energetically with their sacral chakra because of that, or their throat chakra, because the throat chakra pertaining to communication with the whole giving and receiving love, with being told that, you are loved and that you are worthy, and that, that you should be alive just because, you're here, and there's so much, for, yet for you to learn from and to experience. And some people are just very, very low in that energy because of the issues that they have gone through. And so that certain chakra may be very blocked, in the sense that there's a lot of heaviness in that area because of the energetic issues that those people are suffering from because of the psyche. So yes, most of the time it's like the sacral and the throat chakra very much I see a lot of the time for people issues with the sacral chakra and the throat chakra. But then let's say a person is, very loving and it's great, but then it's like, they're a doormat because their heart is just so open that they become polluted, and then they become low in energy. And so they may have issues with the heart chakra because they're just so open that they're being polluted. And that's not good. So, people like that, I sometimes see issues with the heart chakra pertaining to that. Or let's say the business person. Business person may have issues with their solar plexus chakra if they're having trouble in business, because they may see that as, they're losing control, or, just like any area of life. But, especially when it comes to fields like that, fields of communication where you're doing a lot of communicating with people, and where there's a lot of power given and taken based on how well you communicate. For fields like that, it's like, yes, there may be issues, especially with the solar plexus chakra, because a person may not necessarily be balanced in that area, or for certain things to be happening which are simply outside of their control, but for those things to be outside of their control to be affecting them because they're not aware of the things that are inside of their control. So a lot of times things like that may happen to business people. But when it comes to a lot of people, especially people who suffer from depression and anxiety, and people who may have gone through a lot of turmoil, abuse, things like that, many times I encounter and many times I encounter people having issues with their crown chakra, because the crown chakra very much relates to the areas in the brain pertaining to the lobe, which stores information, which stores memory, all sorts of data for us to recollect. And those people may suffer from depression because there's just so much on their mind that they can never place their mind at ease. And so they may become very low in their energy and very depressed because they don't know how to move past those issues because of the heaviness surrounding those areas. So consulting with a Reiki practitioner can absolutely help elevate that person to a new paradigm of energy. And, that's not saying that, again, it's not saying that people should, stop taking their medicine or anything, because sometimes I will work with a person, and then if that person doesn't quite learn how to practice being in that new state of energy, and there's certain issues within their environment that are causing them trouble, and they're simply not practicing learning how to be in a healthy vibration, then there are some people who may lose that energy that I help them with. And that's why when people come to me for help, I express to them ways in which they can be helped and ways in which they can maintain a good energy about themselves so that they aren't constantly being lowered in their energy, or for their energy to be sucked away from them. Because I want the people that I help to not only walk away from the experiences having a very good experience, but I want them to be able to take away a very good educational experience from it as well, so that they can continue to be in a healthy state of energy, and for those people to be happy. And that's what we want in the world.
Yeah, okay. Why will spirits attach themselves to people?
Well, sometimes spirits will attach themselves to us because it could be for any number of reasons, but many times, again, it's a, the person's weak spot. Let's say, there is an evil spirit, and that evil spirit may sense a vulnerability. So that vulnerability within that person may be in a state of vibration that the evil spirit may say, hey, here's something I can work with. Here's something I can express my energy unto. So, issues can arise in those ways. Or sometimes there may be a loved one on the other side, not an evil spirit, just a loved one on the other side who may be attached to us in the sense that they're either trying to, get our attention, to bring something to our awareness, possibly because they are concerned about us. And then there are the energies and spirits that are attached to us in healthy ways, such as guardian angels and guides and spirits who quite literally help us to connect with our own energies in healthy ways. So not all of it has to be so scary at all. And when we learn how to work with our energy and to be in balance and to work with our guides, it's like, that doesn't have to be scary at all.
So the cases that you have done, is it dangerous what you do? Could you get a blowback from the other side?
Originally, when I would go to help people, and I would help people with the hands-on Reiki, with me being so clairsentient and not quite yet practicing that loving detachment that I expressed earlier, I would sometimes quite literally become injured and feel pain, sometimes for days. So that wasn't so good. But again, when a person learns how to be in a good state of energy, they learn how to achieve that peace and that balance through that healthy, loving detachment, and for them to simply be a conduit for that energy to flow through to help that other person. It starts to get much better. That's a much healthier way of being. But, absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right. Man, this is a great conversation. Very informational. Sorry. Very informational. Is there anything that you want that I didn't ask that you want to tell us?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. I think I probably over questioned.
Oh no, you're good. It was. I really enjoyed this conversation that we had, but I do think that that's something that I need to address. There is one more thing that I do need to address. Okay, so just like how I have this this panel here, where where I have the placeholders, we can simply envision it before us, just like on a table. And let's say there's a certain house that's haunted, or a certain area of land that is haunted. So just like how I have those placeholders, we don't necessarily need to have a placeholder. We can just envision it before us because of the nature of energy for how we connect to things. So when there is a house, because I did help a woman recently, not only with herself, but with her house and her kitty. But when we go to sense another place that may be, say haunted, or have a certain energy about it that is not quite comfortable, just like how we can help a person with their energy, so too can we help an environment energetically from afar. So it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to go across the country or across the world to certain places. We can simply envision that place before us and sense those areas within the environment. And sometimes having an actual map of a location and placing that map before us, and then sensing the energy of those locations on the map, can actually help us tune into that area to better understand what the issues are with that environment, and how the energies of that environment can be alleviated, how the people who go through that house or that place, that building or field, or castle, or any place that you can think of, working with environments in that sense can really help to brighten the world, and not only to help place people at rest, but also to just raise the state of vibration in our world, and bring a lot of peace and joy to people. So it helps. Just it's that's what I personally do, and I don't find it so hard to do. I mean, it's like once you learn how to work with people energetically through modalities like Reiki, it's like what's the difference? It's like, yes, you have the body, so too can you work with the environment, a place. It's like same thing.
Great to know. Well, thank you for being a part of the show. This is an honor to speak to you. I learned so much information about this. Is way better than actually looking at those paranormal shows and like not knowing anything. You actually really gave us great information. Now I can actually see what basically that on the other side. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
You are so very welcome. And if you would like me to help you to teach people how they can enter certain states, to learn how to hone and master these abilities, I would love to come back and help you to understand how people can learn how to work with their abilities, so that way everyone can have access to learning how to do these things for themselves.
Please come back. I will contact you. Please come back. Thank you so much. Yes. I will contact you. We will talk about this. Great. Everybody, thank you for viewing this. I know that you were not just not entertained, but you was also informed. So everybody have a good night. And thank you, you too. All right. Bye.